on this part of the episode, we're going to talk about government and why we love government, all government, because they're all so good. So, as I was saying at the end of the last part, which was, fuck, I hate government. If Fukushima melted down and spread hundreds of thousands of gallons of insanely radioactive water into the Pacific, there are two things we can do at that point. We can either pray that Godzilla comes out of the Pacific Ocean and destroys Tokyo, like has happened so many times in the past, and that's their retribution for being stupid, or B, we just don't talk about it. Because we pay massive amounts, trillions of dollars to the government to protect us. That's what governments do. It's the only reason that they exist. If you read Common Sense by Thomas Paine, which is a pamphlet about this big, and anybody who hasn't read it does not understand what the fuck the world is based on. It's that simple. You either read that book and you understand why the United States was born because of that book, lit, or you don't read it and you really don't understand what the hell's going on. Luckily, I read it when I was 40. I wasn't forced to read it at 12. I read it because I wanted to, and Randall Carlson, who's a really good buddy of mine, who's been on Joe Rogan's show, 10 times now. Joe actually said he was the most interesting guest he's ever had on. He had me on his podcast, and while we were talking, I mentioned it, and he said, I've never read it. So he pulled it up on his computer, and he read the first page, and he went, wow. Can I read this first page? And I said, sure, go ahead. He actually read the first page of the booklet on our podcast because he was shocked at what it said. And basically, I won't spoil it, but to give you a kind of a sneak peek, societies come together for all of the best reasons because people want to do trade, and they want to trade ideas and goods, and they want to, be together, and make music and have fun. I mean, it's what we do. We're pack animals. We love to be together. Governments are formed because of the worst parts of man, which are the violence and the lying and the cheating and the stealing. So you have to have some restraining force for those evildoers, if you will. Thank you, George Bush. For the evildoers in the world. And so governments are designed to restrain. Well, anything that's designed specifically and only to restrain something can't be positive. How do you do that? So all governments are bad. That's the upshot. There's no such thing as a good government. There has never been, and there will never be. Whether it was the Greeks or the Romans or the Egyptians, doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter whether it's a queen or a pharaoh or you call him a conqueror or whatever you want. They're all fucked up because these are people who are trying to keep us from doing certain things. Now, some of the things they're trying to keep us from doing are awesome. Murder's not really that great a thing, And so you have to have a government because if you don't have a government, nature abhors a vacuum. At which point you get what's going on in Somalia. You get warlords. Whoever the biggest, meanest son of a bitch is, he's in charge. And then you get a bunch of big, mean son of a bitches who all are in charge of their own little areas. It doesn't work. And then, of course, anybody who's not a big, mean son of a bitch is now a slave. That's why slavery still exists today. There are more slaves in the world today than there ever have been in the history of mankind. There are more slaves right now in the world. And it's because if you don't have a strong moral government, which is really, that's a weird one. That's a fine line to walk. So we pay this enormous amount of money to this small group of people who are only there for one reason, to protect us. We're here to protect you. And so what if they couldn't, though? Do you think people would work from January 1st until April 15th of every year, knowing that every fucking dime they made during that entire amount of time? Now we're in March. Nobody's working for themselves right now. If you have a normal job, you're working for the fucking government right now. Every dollar you earn is not yours. That's going to pay your taxes. As of April 15th, going forward, all that money you get to keep. That's a lot of your life where you're just earning money to give away to a group of people that you've never met, you don't know anything about, but you do know one thing. They're using it to protect you.
Or so they say.
Or so they say. Now the question is, and I would even ask Trump this, when he was first elected, I thought, Jesus Christ, we're in deep trouble. This was, and back in 2020, I thought, oh God, this is, or 2016, I thought, God, this is going to be a shit show. This guy's a clown. He's a TV fucking guy, but he did a couple things while he was president that I went, all right, yeah, it makes sense. He kicked China in the balls a couple times pretty hard over trade. Good, because they're stealing everything from us. They're stealing us blind. We should have never done business with them. Our arrogance as Europeans was, oh, you know what? We'll go in there and we'll tame these savages with our money. We'll basically bribe them into being like us. And they went, those dumb sons of bitches. They're going to give us all their money thinking that they're going to change us. They're not going to change us. We're going to change them. Wait, so there are other arrogant people other than Europeans? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Every group is arrogant in its own way. I lived in Japan. They look at us as savages. They love us. They think we're cute, But at the same time, they think we're pretty damn barbaric. Kind of hard to argue.
Makes sense, yeah. Really after being there recently, that makes sense, yeah.
I lived in Korea. The Koreans are very tough, very macho guys, and so they kind of look past that a little bit. I mean, unless you pick your chicken up with your fingers, that's not cool. But, it's little things that no matter where you go in the world, there are differences. But the reality is that someplace like China, they are a threat to us. And so when Trump did that, I went, okay, that's not a bad idea. He did a couple other things that I was like, okay, I think this guy might actually have some good ideas. Now, I did also see that he picked all the wrong people, and I didn't understand why he did that, but it's because he trusted certain people. He was new. He didn't know what he was doing, so he just had to put his faith in somebody, and they screwed him royally.
I noticed he picked a totally different type of cabinet now.
Yeah, totally different cabinet. And by the way, I just couldn't help but notice this morning as I was watching the press secretary and thinking about her and Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, and I was like, this is the best looking cabinet ever. Just some damn good looking humans. What the hell? What's going on? Like, did anybody know that there could be like really competent people that were this good looking?
I think more confident people and more competent people are, and nicer people are more good looking. I think good looking comes from like the way you act and stuff. Because a lot of the most evil people also are really ugly.
Yeah, it gets to you. It kind of percolates
changes
out.
Your shape, your eyes and your nose and your
look at
face. You start becoming
Rockefeller was at the time by far the richest man in the world. He looked like a fucking rat.
Yeah,
he literally had a rat face.
Because the more evil you are inside, I feel it changes your face shape.
Although I've seen some shows where guys played the devil and they were always handsome.
Yeah, TV shows. I mean, those guys are typically actually
not reality.
Those guys are typically you hear them talk and they have an English accent and they're really nice people. Actually, if anything, they're too soft.
Exactly. Like, wait, you can't be the devil.
Yeah, they play like an evil character and then you see them and they're not. But anyways, let's go into Trump. So how do you feel like he's doing?
He's doing well. But again, the what I was saying before was that if a government can't protect you, why pay them? So. Can you protect me from a solar flare? No, you can't. Can you protect me from the radioactive water from Fukushima? That's on the other side of the fucking Pacific. The reason that we don't have to worry and spend all of our money on defense is because we have these two huge buffer zones called oceans. And yet we spend so much money on defense. It's almost like we're the world's police. But that's okay because as the world's police, everyone in the world does trade with us very fairly. Like they don't charge us huge. Oh, maybe they do. So there's something going on behind the scenes, and I don't know why we haven't pulled the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz earlier, but we're patrolling the world's oceans. If we stop patrolling the world's oceans, bye China, period, goodbye. You think they're going to send freighters around anywhere near Africa? No, they're all going to get jacked by pirates. Why aren't there more pirates? Why can you cruise around in the Caribbean? Well, I mean, some parts you still can't cruise around in the Caribbean on a yacht because there are pirates. Why isn't piracy a thing anymore? Because of the United States Navy. Now, people would say, well, China, they have a Navy. Okay. Well, yes, they do, sort of. Their new supercarrier, it's amazing. So high-tech. It's the most high-tech they've ever had. And for those of you who have ever been in the military, it's diesel electric. Yeah, that's what we used in World War II. Diesel electric. You have diesel engines that charge the batteries, and then the batteries run the electric motors that make your boat go the crowd. We haven't used that for 50, 60 years in any of our naval vessels.
So we're way ahead of that.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
That's how you sail around the world. Now, if you just want to go a few hundred miles off the coast, okay, that's cool. Maybe 1,000 miles.
Do you think it's all just a parade to like show their cannon, show their power for the world, but really they don't?
I know a guy who's lived in China for many years now. He's from South Africa. And I wish I could remember his YouTube channel, but super sharp guy. He went out to one of their largest solar facilities. And, you know, they have some massive, massive solar arrays. And when he got out close enough to it, he could see that none of the solar panels were actually plugged into anything.
So it's just
they built them to show us that, look, we've got bigger solar facilities than you do. Why? I have no idea. They're not plugged in. They don't work. During COVID, the CIA watches pollution levels. A lot of people don't know this, but we watch pollution levels around the world because pollution levels will tell you whether or not, a factory is running or a group of factories is running. And we saw that, strangely enough, their factories were running 24/7, which made us wonder because we were locked down tight as a drum and their factories were still running at 100% capacity, which was really odd until somebody inside of our government went out and actually checked and saw that they were running their factories without any employees in them, just running the machines. They weren't making anything. They were running the machines in order to make enough smog that they could show the CIA, specifically the United States, that, hey, COVID's not hurting us. What? So you're fucking wasting all of those resources to run factories that are not manufacturing a fucking thing, all for the purpose of trying to fool us?
In which it failed, so
yeah. And
nothing.
By the way, when everything was finally shut down, this is something that we'll have a whole episode on. When they finally shut down, and basically the entire world shut down for a little while, during that time, do you know what happened to global temperatures? They went up. Global warming got worse when we shut down all the factories. Oh, yeah, they weren't making CO2, but they also weren't putting in a particulate matter into the atmosphere. So the air was clear. So the sun hit the earth more and it warmed up. What? So pollution's actually keeping us... That's a whole... Like, we could do 100 videos just about what's going on with the entire environment because it's
so you
wild.
must have loved the Al Gore and all that.
You know what? I couldn't understand. Like, I thought Al Gore was such a smart guy back then. I was a Democrat. And I thought, wow, this guy is, I mean, he seems to be like a little bit like autistic, but I don't care. You know, he's not my boyfriend. I don't fucking care what he is. But he seems like he's really intelligent. And then after all of this shit with An Inconvenient Truth came out and I started looking at the numbers, like actually breaking them down and looking at the IPCC and realizing that their numbers were all wrong and that this didn't make any sense. So why are we doing this credits for carbon thing? Well, if I make too much carbon, then I get fined a lot. But what if your company makes less than you're allowed, and so you have extra carbon credits? Well, I can just buy your credits because it's the idea is to bring it all down. So if yours comes down more and mine comes down not quite as much, but average it out. That made sense. Okay. Here's the question though. How do you do the carbon credit thing? Well, clearly you're going to have some kind of system for trading. Okay, so we'll start an exchange. We'll have a carbon exchange. Okay, a carbon exchange. That makes perfect sense. We'll do a carbon exchange. How would we do it like the New York Stock Exchange? Yeah, why not? Where I'll take care of the transaction for you, and I'll transfer yours to me, and I'll do all that. I'll be a third party, and I'll do all that. No, it's a small fee. It's a small fee. Over the course of time, of course, it would add up to trillions of dollars. Well, who owns this carbon exchange? Al Gore. What? Okay, let's review. In business, you either find a need and fill it, or you create a need and fill it. Al Gore is as smart as I thought he was. He's an evil son of a bitch, but he's as smart as I thought he was. He created an entire industry, the carbon credit industry, and he controls it through the carbon exchange, which is global.
Sounds like somebody else from 2001 as well.
I'm telling you, man.
Cheney and Halliburton.
Absolutely. And it's funny because now you're beginning to see the truth about what's really going on behind the curtain. When Dick Cheney or Liz Cheney come out and they say, no, you can't vote for this guy. You got to vote for the Democrat. Sorry, what? Did you just say that you want me to vote for the Democrat? You're a lifelong
Republican
and extremely conservative neocon.
Yeah.
Why would you say that out loud? Oh, because one of them benefits the money side of your universe, and the other one may or may not. Now, I will say this. I've been watching Doge very closely, and they're cutting. Man, it's like a Panamanian dude with a machete on crack. They're just going nuts, cutting up everything.
Yeah.
But do you notice that it's mostly like what Republicans would call entitlement stuff? Department of Education, which I don't even agree with anyway. But my point is that it's a lot of stuff like U.S. AID, and where's the where are those cuts to the Defense Department? Crickets. It's like, wait a minute. So the other day, I found out that Trump negotiated a deal with not just Zelensky, but with Putin, who I like a lot. And people are like, oh, you're a Putin apologist. I don't have to apologize for him. He's a fucking great leader. He has literally pulled a piece of shit country out of the 18th century, and he's made it a great country again.
No, what about the whole last, why do you think he wants Crimea so bad then? What's the whole point of that?
Because of shipping, because they need a port. And, the reality is before they gave it back to the Ukrainians, Ukraine was part of Russia. And it's gone back and forth. And the reality is this, though. Putin hasn't lied about his intentions. People say, well, for no reason he invaded Ukraine. You couldn't come up with a bigger lie than that. I mean, from 2014 on, all he did was say, look, ethnic Russians are being murdered. Ethnic Russians are being killed. The United Nations said that it might even be considered a genocide if it didn't stop, because Ukrainians don't like Russians. Okay, that's cool. You don't like Russians. But that doesn't mean that the Russians that live in Ukraine can be killed. And about 20% of the country, the Donbass region, is all ethnic Russians. Well, the Ukrainians, they don't like them. And they really would like them to go. So what did they do? They started murdering them. All of them. women, children, old people. I don't know about you, but in my book, that's not acceptable. You know, if you're going to pick a fight with somebody your own size. You know, you don't send in militias to wipe out families that are just unarmed
Sounds
civilians.
like somewhere else in our world right now too.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that, you know, you look like, just to back up, because all of this shit's on TikTok and several different social media places. I said at the beginning of COVID, I said, look, it's obviously the lab. Like any idiot can see that a level 4 lab that's a bioweapons lab. Anybody who says, no, it's a bio-research, shut the fuck up. I was in the Marine Corps and I did NBC, which is nuclear, biological, and chemical. I know exactly what that lab is. It's for making bioweapons. And bioweapons are the future of warfare, because I can give your entire army something that is completely lethal. And of course, I'll let some of my own army die because of it so that I have some deniability. But then all of a sudden, I'll come up with a vaccine that I won't fucking share with you unless you give up. Surrender, and I'll give you the vaccine too. Who knows where that virus came from? Did I engineer it? Well, COVID-19 was about as obviously engineered as anything you could ever imagine. When they went and looked at, I want to say it was 15,000 animal species in Australia, they looked at 15,000 animal species to see which one it fit the best, because it doesn't just jump from one species to another perfectly. It jumps to a new species and it doesn't work really well at first, but then it actually gets better and better and better at replicating and moving on. So what species did it fit better than humans? None. Did it fit humans perfectly? Yes, it did. It was designed for human beings. Well, God doesn't roll dice, so that's not where it came from. And it just happened to come from a wet market 8 miles from the Wuhan weapons lab. And it is a weapons lab. People said, oh, dude, you're full of shit. You're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. Whatever. Then, what was the next one? There was this thing that happened on, was it October 7th in Israel? And I said, oh, no, there was one before that, January 6th, where I actually, thank God, I went on social media and said, you know, if I were a Democrat and I were really fucking smart, I would have staged this, because Donald Trump doesn't have a prayer of ever coming back from this. Like, this is the one thing that could kill him politically forever. And if I were a really smart guy, I would have done this myself. I would have set him up. It's starting to look a little bit like that's exactly what happened. Come on, guy puts a pipe bomb outside of Kamala Harris's headquarters, and nobody knows who that was yet. He put the pipe bomb down and he went and talked to the police. They were sitting right there in their cars. It's not like this is rocket science. So who is that? What happened there? So I said, you know, I think the Democrats did this. Okay. And then on top of that, on October 7th, I said, boy, this sure does benefit Israel. This gives Israel basically a carte blanche to just murder anybody they want forever. Well, apparently, as of this morning, and I haven't even watched it yet, but it was all over my news feed, that absolute unequivocal proof that this was planned.
Israeli setup, yeah.
That not Netanyahu knew. Now, I already knew that because I watched the interviews.
They said, remember they were saying, he had intelligence about it, like 8 months in advance.
It wasn't just intelligence. It wasn't just Egypt warning him for a year.
Yeah.
It was also all of the people who live along Gaza.
Yeah.
Who in Israel hasn't been in the military? Well, other than the ultra-Orthodox, worthless people who won't do anything except try to destroy Israel. I mean, literally, if you talk to Israelis, they'll tell you, oh, God, the ultra-Orthodox are fucking worst. Now, you're not allowed to talk about that, but that's the reality.
They arrest them. The police arrest the ultra-Orthodox a lot.
there's Jews and then there's Jews. It's like there's Muslims and then there's ISIS. There's Christians and then there are these crazy sects that live in Idaho that nobody ever sees because they're waiting for the end of the world. Because
the Timothys.
Yeah, Jesus is coming back next week.
Yeah,
which of course they've been saying now for 25 years. But it's always the really foaming at the mouth radical idiots who make it bad for everybody in their group. Now, if I could, I would just take a magic wand and go, okay, guess what? No religion. You're done. You guys had 4,000 years to get this right, and you've all fucked it up. And everybody who gets killed is getting killed over these crazy stories. I mean, think about it. If you pick a religion.
Buddhism.
Okay. But no, because that's not even a religion. That's just a way of life. Those guys are just, hey, don't fuck it up or you come back as a worm. Okay. Maybe. But, okay. So Hindus. Oh yeah. There's 100 different gods, but they're not really 100 different gods. It's 100 different facets of God, which is the real God. And our life, this is all make-believe. None of this is real. This is all a test so that when we die, which we're not dying, we're actually being born, when we go into the next phase, that's when we get to see how we did. Because we get to look back and see how we did in this sort of, I guess you would call it an animation. So, okay, that's a little weird, but all right. Muslims, guy rides a pony through the sky from one place to another. Okay, yeah, sure. Jesus takes 2 fish, walks on water, feeds 5,000 people, turns water into wine. Now, by the way, there were about 25 other God figures, that saviors that did all that same shit. So none of that impresses me, To me, it's like, I just don't, and again, going back to part 1, if you didn't watch part 1, you're going to be really sorry right now. Going back to part 1, I think about AI. What's AI going to make of this? Can you imagine? I mean, my IQ is pretty good.
If you're logical, what is it going to think?
Right. I mean, I've been accused of not being emotional enough, usually by my exes, whatever. But my point is that, I am very logical. I don't stand a chance against AI, though. That's like really logical. Explain Muhammad, explain Jesus, explain Abraham to AI. And it's going to be like, okay, I got to get rid of you first. How could it not? Because it's going to look at the laws of physics. It's going to look at magic, and it's going to see that most magic is just science that we don't understand yet. So we call it magic. Can
I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
Do you think, and I don't know if I asked this before. Tell me if I asked this before. Do you think that ghosts or spiritual beings?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Do you think that ghosts are spiritual beings, by the way, because there have been like scientific, there is some backing behind third party, alien, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Dude,
if they exist,
if
they exist, what do you think they are then? Because are they an extension of what God created, or are they aliens?
You guys better subscribe. Like, seriously.
We're gonna have to talk about that on the third.
My God.
We'll give them a snippet, and then we're gonna talk about it.
I'm visiting a girl, very cute. She's watching her brother and sister's house out in the mountains. It's a little old cabin. It's like 200 years old, and really cool little cabin. And she tells me it's haunted, and I laugh.
Oh, you went there?
Yeah.
You saw something. You saw something.
Spent the weekend there.
Yeah.
So she's explaining to me how rings disappear and then they end up in the pool, on the middle of the pool table, stacked up, and all this stuff. And I'm leaning up against the counter in the kitchen. I was like,
yeah, right.
I don't know,
that don't scare me.
I don't think,
You've never been to a real house like that. I lived in one.
Yeah.
I lived in one.
Well, she said,
Oh, I've seen it.
They got a sense of humor though. They're little pranksters. And I was like,
yeah, they are.
I said, oh yeah, right. Like that, like ghosts are real. and every single cabinet in the kitchen at the exact same moment
Open in front of your eyes.
open,
In front of your eyes.
and all of the pots and pans
Flew out.
onto
That's a
onto the
really
floor.
big one. That's a big one, dude.
It scared me so bad,
Dude.
that my knees went out from under me.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've seen it. So I was in my kitchen. I was in my kitchen, plate in the middle of the thing. Flied. Just flew. And I was like, this is where I said, okay, something is real. Something is real.
You can't explain that with physics. So here's, and I thought about this. I thought this would be a great movie. If AI does try to kill us, we only have one advantage over AI. We are psychic. Everybody is. We can communicate with each other without saying a word. My ex-wife.
But how do you explain it though? What would you explain?
I don't know. I
is this new to you? Or are you like now
no.
discovering this?
Oh no, I've known this for a long time. But
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I worked at a radio station. I've got 1,600 songs in my database, right? And I'm just sitting there, picking my nose on a Saturday that some infomercial's going on. I don't even need to be there. But I thought, I'm going to make her a CD. I literally, when she showed me, I did actually believe it. It was easy to believe. I picked out of 9 songs on the CD, I picked out her 9 favorite songs that she had put on a CD years before in the same order. And they were all over the map. One of them was U2. Another one was Alphaville. Who the fuck's ever even heard of Alphaville?
I love that song, Forever Young.
Exactly. I put that on there. I put Beautiful Day and a bunch of other songs that were, just random songs. And Smashing Pumpkins and a couple of other songs. And she literally started crying. And I was like, did I do this wrong? And she was like, I don't know how the fuck you did this. I'd love to tell you what we talked about in this episode, but we talked about so much so fast, I don't even remember. I'm going to have to watch this episode myself. And I hope you watch this episode with me and then subscribe wherever that is. And then watch the other episode, which is somewhere else. And then what else do they have to do? Subscribe. Oh, like the video if you like the video. That's it. I'll see you soon.